Bill dons his mask. Mysterious music can be heard reverberating from the manor he has entered, and he follows the music into the next room. There he finds the only real confrontation in the entire movie. That sequence from Eyes Wide Shut, I'm sure you know it, it's the masked ball sequence, is what I visually see when I think about the movie. The deep, lustful reds, the grandiose architecture. It's hell. It's no secret that Kubrick was a visual guy. So visual that sometimes he'll imply something using nonverbal language just to avoid characters showing their feelings because he thought that some bitch would attack his feelings anytime he showed vulnerability or something. I don't know. Uh, Most of Eyes Wide Shut happens in slow, broken verbal exchanges and little non-happenings. I swear every time a character has an idea or an intention, Kubrick is like, actually, you're nothing but a pawn for what I really like doing. Filming orgies and autism. And that's not just me being cheeky. Everything that happens in this surface world, in the superego plane, is all false promises and facades. Eyes Wide Shut starts its journey to the unconscious when Alice, Bill's wife, admits to having sexual feelings for another man. Fuck. This causes some sort of paradigm shift for Bill, who wants to be the only person in the relationship with the sociopath's libido. So he begins his journey. He takes a fucking walk in New York, but it's actually not New York. It's really late, and there's like nobody around. Bill is really just traversing himself, and that's when we get these series of encounters, not with like actual real people. Some girl's father dies, and now she loves Bill. He leaves, he meets a prostitute, they almost have sex, they don't, he leaves. Now, at this stage, you're probably like, what the fuck? At least try adding a beat switch or something, if conflicts aren't going to have a cause and effect. Most of the movie is just this cuckold Bill leaving. Literally the most easy, non-value representing action a person could take. But we know Bill isn't valueless, he's just running away. It's a series of non-confrontations. And this is why the mass ball sequence is so memorable and read, because we've been watching the movie through the mass ball's visual the whole time. Most of the movie happens in a place of imagination, the shell of what's happening, and what's realistic and expected by society is fucking boring. The movie would be fucking boring if we couldn't illustrate the sin we can't tangibly have in our own minds. Bill and the prostitute want to have sex, but they don't. So they didn't have sex? No, they did. Was it a more abstract satanic catharsis that was only disguised as sex as a secondary medium? And this is where Lynch would agree and Kubrick would just keep it about sex. Kubrick once said while making Eyes Wide Shut, it's only about sexual obsession and jealousy, nothing else. Which we obviously can't take for gospel, even if Kubrick thought he was telling the truth, although he was probably just telling the narrative that was best fit for the actors. Kubrick understood things better when they weren't spoken. Language corners meaning, and then it reveals a symbolism that's greater than the signifiers used to pronounce the other. This is a Lacanian idea, who, like Kubrick, might keep it about sex. This moon tarot is really cool. It represents the unconscious world. It's my favorite tarot card besides maybe the devil one. Remember what I said about signifiers and Lacan? The moon is the signifier for the meaning, that being the unconscious world. And Lacan would say that the relationship between the moon and what it represents is actually arbitrary, just an association that helps us identify the meaning conveniently and does nothing for the meaning. Okay, then why have divinations held these particular images as sacrosanct signifiers? Keep in mind, tarots are a different story than Nordic runes. Nordic runes, firstly, are much more abstract in their interpretations, and unlike tarots, their alphabetics, which are signifiers, evolved in a natural way over time, whereas tarots were created in a more controlled way, which is why they have these more categorical meanings. But Kubrick damn well knows he can't be no damn mystic out here catching strays being all mystical. His movie presents as this tri-erotic movie in his trailers because Kubrick is actually making two movies. One movie for gooners and another for intellectual gooners. The tarots keep a recognizable shape in all its themes. Actual people with professions or events materially demonstrated. The runes are like female pornography. It's all imagination, which coincidentally is what Mulholland Drive is all about. Now, Lynch has a different autism than Kubrick. He is the kind of autism that makes you speak in tongues instead of organizing really well, or whatever Kubrick does when he tries to wind down. And by now, maybe you've caught on that Lynch is the Jungian and Kubrick is the Freudian. Look at this. Mulholland Drive. This movie is about lesbianism and Hollywood, but that's not what this scene is about. It's about some other brother. He's eating, and then he describes a guy with dreadlocks. He didn't like the dreadlocks man he saw in a dream when it was dark out. Why the fuck wouldn't he? Darkness. Remember that moon tarot? He leads this guy he's with out into the alleyway behind the restaurant. Not for a blowjob. A disgusting yellow LA tint scorches the earth, and even though it's bright out, there's no feeling of safety. The dreadlocks dream has already been planted in our heads, and that's actually what we're experiencing. He moves towards where it was in his dream, assuming for some reason that it lies in wait when it's not being represented by the dreamer. Why would he be afraid of something that he gives so little autonomy to? I don't know, ask him. Another thing to consider is that up till this point, we've also had a series of disconnected sequences, like my boy Kubrick, but here it's like every new sequence is a new reality, not to be trusted. People act weird. Should we even be in these dreams, or are they going to attack us for being the wrong race? I mean, subjects, like in Inception. And this dreadlock man doesn't jump out behind the wall. No, he kind of gently glides into view, looking like esophagus cancer, and then he gently glides out of view. To me, this can only mean he only encountered the image of the thing it represented, since acknowledging it as a sign that exists in the world was actually the scary part to him. And the fact that it was tucked away in a particular place where he left it is interesting too. Like a letter you don't want to open that is left in the garage. To Jung, the dreadlocks man was an archetype. Jung's theory of the collective unconscious is perhaps the strangest in the world of psychoanalysis, or as Jung calls it, analytic psychology. So bear with me. Naomi Watts' character, I forget her name, I'm lazy. She's the blonde. She's kind of pure. Unlike the Devil Tarot, which represents evil forces. So if Naomi's character ever uses tarot cards, she can just discard that one. She hasn't had any experiences that have developed a devil inside her, so to speak. She's naive and blonde, and so she goes out to Hollywood not having connections, but just possessed with the idea that she will get famous. Seems a bit like an empty aspiration by itself, but it's not like she's harming anyone. Definitely still discard the devil. Ironically, Kubrick's idea of a famous aspiring person is a lot more Jungian than Lynch's. Naomi is meant to have this radiant persona because Lynch is a liar, but a wholesome one at that. Kubrick is also a liar because both Lynch and Kubrick are trying to keep false appearances. Jack in The Shining seems to be infected by the hotel to make him do things, feel things he wouldn't normally, sentiments of the devil. However, the hotel is more or less an excuse Kubrick uses to protect your little non-original sin little hearts. Jack already wanted to do those things. He just needed the ghosts, who probably don't exist, to give him the alcohol to lower his inhibition, which also doesn't exist. Suffice to say, Naomi in Mulholland Drive is the signifier we use to identify ourselves to the movie. She sees the world in a totally fake way, and the world is fake. When we cut to the dreadlock scene, the brightness is being used as a fakeness to the moonlight that the psychology of the scene is actually Morden. And Naomi is still our girl. The dreadlocks, as shocking as it is to see something that grotesque being associated with us, the dreamer, least of all, exists in the same world we do. Dreadlocks is actually an archetype within Naomi's psyche, unaccessed. It's not like Kubrick or Freud would say dreadlocks is just a repressed thing by society. Jung says that archetypes are figures that exist in our collective unconscious, which we inherit genetically. It's not related to her childhood or experiences. Also notice how I've never said that dreadlocks was a devil. Haven't even told you what he's represented, but you probably assumed. That's because Jung says the signifier, dreadlocks, is inextricably related to the meaning, which, yes, in this case, is the devil. Not necessarily a religious one. The devils looked more dapper than LA plane crash chart homelessness, I'm sure. At first glance, you might think Kubrick used an archetype in Eyes Wide Shut. When again, Bill was out in fake New York, the Moon Terror once again reappears in my mind. A stocky guy with no eyebrows follows Bill. Strange image for a thing to take. Reminds me of the judge from Blood Meridian, who is also known to be a satanic incarnation. But Bill has a thing. He's being blackmailed by his own sexual thoughts. Oh, I didn't get to that? Why would you assume when he went to the mass ball to do freaky unconscious land stuff that it didn't resolve fine? After all, the film ends basically by saying it's okay to have fantasies. We have no choice. Let's continue our marriage as lustful, sinful, reprehensible creatures. Freud says all neuroses and dream interpretations are cause and effect from society repressing natural human urges, and all dreams to him are wish fulfillments. He also tended to put sexual urges on a pedestal as encompassing all other urges, because Freud was a serious freak man. There are asexuals out there that don't have eyes wide shut fantasy every time they take an afternoon nap. Kubrick made a lot of sexual insinuations in his films. So maybe he was the same, but Kubrick was a genius of intuition, whether he thought it was just about sexual obsession or not, because the masked ball is so much more. As the only real scene in the movie, everything else is fake, there are lots of boobs. Because that's what the movie is all about. There's a hierarchy here, and that's actually a theme I meant to touch on. Bill is rich in his fake non sequitur encounters with women who want him, not because he's rich. He constantly uses massive wads of cash to temper the phrase. It's as if the same ego that was hurt by his wife having feelings for another man less powerful than he wants to regain power by throwing around money disproportionate to the situation as if it's just an abstract signifier. And yes, you can use money to signify, but it's not a free way to represent something. When he delves into the heart of his unconscious, the masked ball, the sex ritual has an air of, how do I put it? I want to die on Mars, fuck you money. So much money that fantasies are the same thing as reality for these people. Bill doesn't belong. His unconscious is hostile to him because he feels impotent, yet he's in this masked ball. Money stops being a commodity for some reason. There's a more invisible form of transaction. Everybody is nude and having sex and wearing masks. Yes, I will get to the Red Wizard Guide. Every person he had an almost sexual encounter with feels like they indiscriminately embody anybody wearing a mask. And remember, this is about boobs. The masks are just for you to project whoever you want onto them because we're here for sex, not something else, right? There's a lot of satanic imagery. And here I'm split. Kubrick is either making fun of religious people or he's expressing his reductive opinion on sexuality in a way that looks Jungian. Kubrick likes to write protagonists that are not special, people that have average creativity and abide societal standards. Alex is weird. There was no way Kubrick could make him normal. Nietzsche said that our conceptions of evil came from slave morality, and that it was not a thing that intrinsically existed. Yet Bill's raw unconscious is run by demons and supernatural forces rampant. This is Kubrick making fun of us, yeah, probably. After all, this movie was about getting his wife's approval back. Oh wait, no, that's Naomi's design. You see, Dreadlocks has a blue cube in his hands. It's dark now. Doesn't matter when this happened, his archetype is eternal. Naomi finds this helpless, fragile, black-haired girl that just couldn't take care of herself without a naive blonde in her life. She got in a car accident and can't remember anything after all. Naomi will just have to fill her up with Naomi-ness, since there's nothing inside. Here's something that feels unrelated. Bill pays women to create a better memory of the exchange in his head, one in which he's non-impotent. The elites responsible for the sex cult use the mere threat that they have money to make things never have happened in the first place. Amnesia, if you will. Not that there's anything to forget except for what you imagine the mask on the boobs to represent subjectively. Bill is cornered by his unconscious when he can no longer manipulate using money. He can't remember the second password, so the Red Wizard, who is responsible for establishing the hierarchy of the orgy, using body language, a swinging incense burner, and bows, tells him to undress. I believe Kubrick thought the Red Wizard was merely a visual tool to help him demonstrate the motifs of the orgy without exposition, but by doing that, he incidentally reveals that the Red Wizard is Kubrick's sexual tyrant. In a world where humans are bonobos and sex is a detached transactional thing, the Red Wizard has no need for resentfully evaluating self-worth in relationship to sex and trying to apply systematic conscious forms of control into a place so free from all that. When Bill, is stripped naked and he fears being seen as naked, this is resistance to shadow integration, right? The unconscious and the conscious communicating with each other. The sexual acts still carry the same heaviness, even if you claim there are no signifiers, only masks. The masks are just signifiers that are unemployed because they don't signify anything in particular. Naomi apparently resists not because she sleeps with vulnerable black-haired does. And that blue cube Blackhair has? Well, it's familiar, but since black hair is completely empty, the blue cube must mean nothing. After all, agendas don't exist all by themselves. Naomi had black hair murdered, it turns out, right next to where dreadlocks would be for the other guy, who definitely isn't Naomi. Or else why would it appear to a subject that she doesn't identify with, unless it wasn't trying to communicate to Naomi? Well, Dreadlocks wants to hide, but he wants Naomi to know he's hiding, which is why he peeks over the wall every now and then. And whose approval do you need?